So around that time, that's when I met you, Kirsten Dunst.
Right.
I think you were gone for a while because you were on set for Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah, I was down in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know what it is. I can't hardly wait.
Nope.
Oh,
Everybody was in that.
Drop Dead Gorgeous.
I didn't see that.
It was supposed to be called Dairy Queens, but Dairy Queen actually put an estoppel on the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it was about the beauty pageant circuit, like in Wisconsin or Minnesota. But it was Kirsten Dunst.
Yep.
It was Denise Richards, Brittany Murphy, rest her soul, Alex Holden.
But she had a great arc on Friends where she was dating David Schwimmer.
Yeah.
And
Bruce Willis was her dad.
Yeah.
And I would call her. And I would change my accent just to get her on the phone.
Yeah.
And at the end of the call, I'd say, "Hey, this is John Homa."
Welcome to 90who10. I'm Dan Eisenstein. I'm here with
Jessica Etner.
and with my very good friend John Homa, renowned acting teacher and father of six-time PGA Tour winner Max Homa.
And also a good friend of David Faustino.
That's true. That's right.
God.
That's right.
Yeah, the 6 degrees of David Faustino.
Really.
Yeah.
It's one.
John and I go back a long, long time. I've known John almost as long as I've known you. I've known John
That's a while.
over 30 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I did some acting growing up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dave's manager at the time was somebody named Bo Shoot.
Okay.
And her boyfriend was a guy named Andy McGarrian. And that was John's partner.
Yep.
In acting. And so that's how I came to know John, and he and I just hit it off.
Yep.
And he coached me for a lot of good stuff. And when I was there, Freddie Prinze was there, Eric Balfour was there, Andrew Keegan.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
who it
hell
is.
yeah. Andrew.
Andrew Keegan.
I think he's running a church over in Venice.
I think he has a cult now. No, I'm not even kidding.
No, but Freddie met Kimberly in our class.
That was all. That was.
It was crazy, man. And then with, I know he did last summer.
Yeah.
Then it got really weird.
Yeah. But she had a great arc on Friends where she was dating David Schwimmer.
Yeah.
And Bruce Willis was her dad. Yeah, that was a great.
Oh, I would know exactly.
That was so high profile.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Well, also, there was a movie, I coached like 4 or 5 people in it. And good.
I know what it is. I can't hardly wait.
Nope.
Oh.
Everybody was in that.
Drop Dead Gorgeous.
I didn't see that.
It was supposed to be called Dairy Queens, but Dairy Queen actually put an estoppel on the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it was about the beauty pageant circuit, like in Wisconsin or Minnesota. But it was Kirsten Dunst.
Yep.
It was Denise Richards, Brittany Murphy, rest her soul, Alex Holden, and who else was in there that I coached? But yeah, that was crazy.
You must have had a lot of people on Can't Hardly Wait too.
Can't Hardly Wait.
Seth Green, Bobby Jacoby, who was a guest on our show here, and somebody who was there who's a huge part of my time there. People might not know, but if we say he had a little great part that people know was Jed Ryan.
Oh, Jed, I love Jed.
And he who played George Costanza, young George Costanza on Seinfeld. He was great as that.
Jed was a piece of work,
I love
man.
Jed.
Me too.
You guys are reminiscing on all these movies. I now have lots of questions.
Let's hear it.
What?
Well, number one, I didn't realize we've never really talked or done a deep dive on your acting career because
a little bit, but not much.
A little bit, but not much because I don't really know much about it. And obviously, you're not from LA by that accent.
No.
So how did this all come to fruition? What did you
got me to LA?
Yeah, you're an actor first and foremost.
Yeah, I grew up in a little coal mining town in Pennsylvania with a very, we'll just say, sketchy past. Very interesting though. And
he just glazes over.
Yeah.
What
Nah. No. It's just to say, things fell off trucks, and sometimes, if it wasn't falling off, you had to tip the truck a little bit. We had some fun back then. I ran with a lot of interesting guys, but decided at a point that I really had to make a life decision because I was heading in a wholly different direction and not a good one.
Yeah.
And went back to Penn State thinking I was going to be an attorney because where I grew up, you were either an attorney or a doctor or you had your own business or something. It was a small town. And unfortunately, all the girls either became secretaries or, it was like that kind of mentality. But I went back and thought, well, I'll get into economics, take a decent major, get into a good law school, and then realizing at a point I was doing probably better than some of my professors were for reasons, and I thought, this is not for me. I can't do it. And then I had a teacher in particular that my really good buddy at the time, Jeff Devers, who went on to Harvard Business. He picked up a book that I was struggling with. I had an exam the next day, and he was a partier, and he was going, "Come on, let's go, Homa, let's go out." I said, I can't. I got to know this by tomorrow. Well, he said, "Go take a shower, get ready to go. We'll go out." He says, he read 3 chapters while I was getting dressed, explained it all to me. I walked in, got a high A on that test, and walked away. I thought, if he can do this and they can't, what am I doing here? But I want to make a mark, on the world somehow. I just didn't know, what I was going to do, but I knew I kind of had to be heard. I talked my way into the theater department at Penn State.
Wow.
Manuel Duque, my dean he went to Carnegie Mellon, came from there, and I had all this prestige. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I couldn't find my ass with both hands in my back pocket. You know
Had
what I
you
mean?
been an actor in high school, or you just were
in fact,
on a whim?
My interview with Manuel, he asked me, he goes, "What makes you think you could possibly be an actor?" And I just said, I made it this far. And that was the truth. I made it, believe me. There was a lot of acting going on that I didn't know about. That I was getting paid for the acting part.
Right.
But anyway, so I got in there, and a really great guy by the name of Knox Fowler. You may know his son if you watch ESPN, Chris Fowler. Yeah, I got to talk to Chris someday. But his dad was basically my mentor at Penn State. I loved him. Unfortunately, he died not long after I left. They said, "This is who you're going to go meet." I'm like, "Where am I going?" He said, "No, you're going to New York and you get out of here. We can't teach you here. You're a pro." And I called my dad, broke his heart, told him I was dropping out, and headed to New York so I could get the next semester at the Neighborhood Playhouse with Sandy Meisner, Mr. Meisner. Sorry, Mr. Meisner. And so I got in there, and it's weird because basically the same age as everybody else, but I was a lot older than them because of my life history, coming in. Because I said to them one day, "There's shit to be afraid of, and this ain't it." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the adrenaline rush of acting, I mean, it filled a void, that I had definitely fed in other ways. And I mean adrenaline. Look, I demolished 7 cars. I mean, I was crazy. So I got in the Neighborhood Playhouse. I think there's like 125 people in the first year, and they invite only like 20 to the second year. Well, next thing I know, I'm getting invited back, and I'm totally flattered by the whole thing. So I went. I probably should have gone somewhere else, because what it was lacking, Bill Alderson was out here teaching for a while. He was kind of my main teacher, but Sandy was there. And the first year at the Neighborhood Playhouse was just nothing short of fucking amazing. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, what happened was at Penn State, I got into a play. I just understood it. I just intuitively understood it. It was raw, it was real, and next thing I know, I got people coming up to me going, "Oh my God, you're in that play." And Knox took notice of me, and they pulled me aside, and now I was like kind of like their special guy. But then I realized in anything other than that, I had no idea what I was doing. So, and I needed technique. I needed a craft. And
what was it that drew you to act? I mean, I know what you said at the beginning, like you already felt like you'd been,
like I said, I wanted to leave a mark. I mean, we're here for a short amount of time.
Tell me about it.
And I look at my son. I look at my son. I mean, he had a path from when he was little. I mean, he started playing golf when he was about, he'll tell you, 3. I mean, I took him to the what is now the Genesis, at Riviera when he was 2, on my shoulders, and he just fell in love with golf. I mean, he played everything else. He played all kinds of sports, but he was Max. If somebody was putting on television, and we were talking, you would hear him go shh. When he was little. I mean,
so
now he said, "Dad, when we get to middle school, it'll be golf only." So I just totally supported that, but it was nice to have a career I mean, he had a path.
Yep.
Right,
You know, he
right.
knew what he wanted.
Yep.
That's a blessing. A lot of people
I mean,
don't
I've
have
known
that.
Max since he was about 14, and he knew what he wanted to do. And we're going to get into Max, but
Yeah.
I want to get back
But
to
I mean,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
going to Kirsten Dunst,
Yeah.
you know, when she was 8, we started working together when she was 7. When she was 8, I got a phone call. I was driving down a 5, man. I get a phone call. Johnny? I'm like, hi. She goes, Mommy can't get me to class. Can you pick me up? I said, does your mom know you're calling me? You know? She
Yeah.
goes, oh, no, she's right here. She said, you call him if you want him to come get you. But we are then
Yeah.
moving into the attached at the hip.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then when I met you, you guys were attached at the hip.
yeah. And Max was friends with her brother Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, we all hung out together.
Yeah. And are you going out on auditions at
No,
that time
not
too?
allowed to.
Not allowed to.
In fact, Chris Noth,
Yeah.
who was there at the
Yeah.
same time, he got thrown out because he got into a play at Manhattan Theater Club.
Yeah.
They strictly prohibited. You didn't audition. You didn't work outside until they felt you were ready to put, you know, the name on the resume. And I got it. For me, it worked.
Yep.
I mean, I could see other guys going in there and, you know, they wanted to work. They grew up like in theater in high school and things like that. I didn't do any of that.
Yep.
I mean, we did a play in high school, and we got all recruited, like all the guys in the crew got recruited for Guys and Dolls because we look like, you know, gangsters.
Yeah.
But, no, so I got in there. I ended up going back for the second year and ended up with basically the lead in the final production. It was unbelievable. I mean, my dad came, and it kind of changed everything in him.
Yeah.
Because he walked up to me. I saw my father cry very few times in my life. I mean, he was an emotional guy, but didn't, you know, that generation.
Yep.
He just walked up to me with tears in his eyes, saying, I have no idea what you just did that I saw you do.
Yeah.
Because it was a little-known William Inge play, The Disposal. I played a farm boy that strangled his pregnant wife and was on death row going to the electric chair that night. It's called The
Heavy.
Disposable. Oh, The Disposal. It was real heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at my dad, looking at there going, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
And then I got a lot of agent, you know, cards and stuff that, you know, they leave you cards after the show. Barnard Hughes, rest his soul, I love him. You know, he's on Broadway with Da. You probably know him from Sister Act 2 and a couple of other. He was in Midnight Cowboy, things like that. We took a great liking to me. I was friends with his daughter Laura, and I started walking the boards, as they call it in New York, you know, Broadway. You know, he brought me down to the theater that he was in. I got a chance to walk around while he checked props every night. It was a whole new world for me.
Sure. And what year is this around?
Oh, this would be back late 70s.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
early
Wow.
80s.
Yeah.
And now I'm out. I met a guy by the name of Wallace Potts who ended up out here. Wallace is a great, great guy. And he was trying to raise money for a film and cast me in like the sample. So I got into a film. And because again, I didn't know what I was doing. They threw me out in the streets of New York, this actor with all this just kind of
Energy
and rage and, you know, all kinds of things. But I was such an asshole. I mean, I was extremely difficult to work with when it came to people that
You never.
Yeah. I didn't, when I thought you didn't know what you were talking about with acting, I had a real hard time. Andy, in the meantime, because McGarry was in my class.
Yeah. At
Playhouse.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we met.
Okay.
He went off to Trinity. We kind of separated after school.
Yeah.
I stayed in New York and tried to pursue it. And I was, you know, just hammering away at New York, you know.
Yeah.
And I started doing New York stage. Who else was in our class a year behind us, really interesting, is Marta Kaufman.
Okay.
Now, you know Marta?
Yeah, the writer.
Yeah,
Writer
friends.
friend.
And we were very tight then. And, I mean, she went off to do amazing things. And but I'm just pounding away at it. Jenny Gray, you know, went out and got Dirty Dancing, and we had an interesting class, man.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't understand the business of the business at all, and I just went out. I was, you know, working with guys down at Circle Rep, and then Steppenwolf came in from Chicago, and Gary Sinise directed some stuff. But I was hanging with those guys. My buddy Jose Santana, we did a great show in New York, and he was understudying Jimmy Hayden, who was doing American Buffalo with Pacino. Jose's now teaching directing at USC. Now, I was living with my girlfriend at the time that was from Philly, And we're living in, I got this, kind of shithole in New York, and I went in, the struggling actor stuff. But she was working at Bloomingdale's, went on to be an executive at Bloomingdale's, moved up to the Upper East Side, which I never should have been. I said, but she was Jewish, and she's an executive at Bloomingdale's, so I think the law was you had to be in the I'm working, I worked at 78th Street Theater Lab. I'm doing work with, Circle Rep downtown, and just trying to eke out a living as an actor. And it's funny because I got audited one year, and I was like, why did I get audited? Because how are you possibly living in New York with making this little money?
Yeah.
And I said, well, because my girlfriend that I live with is,
you got a sugar mama.
Yeah. Well, anyway, then I got cast, and I got my Actors Equity card playing Stanley Kowalski in Streetcar.
Wow.
Which was great.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of changed because what a great play.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing it for about 9 months in various venues. But it was very frustrating. There was no film and television work to speak of in New York. I mean, it came and it went.
Yep.
I got a chance to work with Bill Bixby at one point.
Yep.
It was amazing.
I've just become friendly with Brandon Cruz. You know who that is?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Coach
yeah.
Barry's father, man.
Yeah. He's got a whole thing for
Hell
Bill.
yeah.
He's trying to get Bill a star on the Walk of Fame.
He should have one by now.
Yeah,
I'm stunned that he doesn't.
Yeah, it's a lot of politics involved.
He
but anyway.
directed an episode of something that I was basically glorified background. I think that Bill took me aside, gave me a line.
Yeah, you know who Bill Bixby is, right? He was the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
He
But
was
also on a show
in
called Courtship of Hetty's
let's go
Father.
back further. My favorite Martian back in the guy was accomplished, and he took me aside.
Yeah.
He also cast me in another show out here.
Yeah.
When I came out, and gave me some very sage advice, man. I mean, he had been around for a long time. I really love Bill, and he unfortunately passed away young too.
Yeah.
But so I'm working stage. I was then I went out and did a lot of regional. Came back to New York, but it wasn't going the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
And again this very thick head, on my shoulder. That was very difficult, and I
love that though. With wisdom comes like recognition.
Sometimes.
No, but I think that's great that you're going. Oh no, I can see now. Like I think that's great. I do.
I mean, I would. I got signed with ICM. I had a kind of a rabbi, a godfather that I didn't even know was pulling strings for me, and I ended up getting signed. Well, because of Wallace Potts. Wallace is an amazing guy, and fortunately he's no longer here. But he introduced me to Nestor Almendros, who was an unbelievable cinematographer. He did Days of Heaven, and those days with Richard Gere, and he took a look at me through the lens and said something to Wallace, and Wallace made a phone call to another guy, and next thing I know, I'm interviewing over at ICM. Yeah. So I went in there, but I'm up against a lot of big-time talent, because this is ICM when they were one of the top 3.
Right, and this is in New York.
In New York.
In the 80s.
I'm getting very frustrated. I'm going out for stuff. I'm not doing it the way I want to do it, and I finally convinced. Well, here's what happened. I got a job, like a job, selling at the New York Health and Racquet Clubs in New York, when they were the most prestigious club in New York, right? I had a job there, so I could come and go and audition. But a sales job opened up, so I started selling. Our biggest sales day of the year, July 31, I got called to do a reading of a screenplay for Paramount, directed by Dennis Hopper.
Yep.
With Danny Aiello, with Harvey Keitel, with Paul Sorvino, Frank Vincent, rest his soul.
Yeah.
Well, the rest of everybody's freaking soul. I think Harvey's the only one still here.
Yep, that's right.
At first, I told them I turned it down, and I was in a panic. I mean, I went through like a cold sweat, panic after it was over. And I said, God, I called them up, and I said, hi, this is ICM. And I said, I represent John Homa. And there was a mistake made. Offered 2 things. John was offered 2 things to do, and we had turned one down, but it ended up being yours. But no, he does not want to turn that down. So we made a mistake. Can we get him back? So I ended up leaving a girl that did tours for the club at my desk on the highest sales day of the year. I had a stack of contracts. I already made a bunch of phone calls. And I left for like 4 hours and did this play reading. I come back. I turned in $95,000 worth of contracts. I got fired 3 days later for doing it, for leaving. Because they said, and they love me, and I love them, but they said, John, look, we need a salesman. You're an actor. Go be an actor. And I called my wife, and I said, our next door neighbors had a place in Montauk, and I said, find out if Chris and Doug are going to be out there this weekend. What's going on? I said, I'll explain it to you when I get home. So a month and a half later, I was living in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Because they said, we're not going to contest unemployment. And we went out, I told her the whole thing, and Bullock's department store was raging at the time out here, and that's a sister company to Bloomingdale's. She made a direct transfer over to Bullock's, and I came out here and started on an acting career. But it was difficult because the thing was, my agent in New York was supposed to also move out, David Williams. He's now another just great guys. I had some really great guys, in there. But he ended up heading up the theatrical department at Dunn Buchwald in New York instead. So I was
Howard Stern's agent, by the way.
Right, Howard's. Yeah. I came out here. I didn't know anybody, and it was a wholly different world in New York, and I did not know how to swim in it.
And what year is this about?
This would have been like 87, 88.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And
so I just met you a few years after that.
After that. Yeah. But see, I hooked up with Andy when I came out here.
Yeah.
Because he was out here.
Yeah.
And I called him because he was like my only real friend. And because Andy and I were really tight in New York.
Yeah.
And we started playing golf together. I crazily was watching TV one day, and I saw this show called Sale of the Century, right? And I see this guy on it that I knew in New York. And he won some money. I was like, well, I could do that. And I saw in the paper, Sunday paper, that there were ads for the show to be on it. So
I have been on a couple game shows, and I used to look in the back. So
I went down, and you have to take a 50-question test. But I pulled all these clothes out, and Bonnie was laughing her ass off because she goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm putting together an outfit that I would never wear, and I'm going to go down, in my geekiest." And I told them, they asked me questions about yourself, something interesting. Well, I'm a great speller. I said, because I grew up, my address was 15 East Catawissa Street in Esquahone, Pennsylvania. And they were laughing their ass off. And I took the test. I made it through. I end up at NBC. They held me back from the show. Like, they don't have to put your name in the hat. Yeah, but compliance and practice is really, because a quiz show.
Yep.
Man, it's so tight. But I got on the show. I was on for 10 days. Nobody beat me. I won $90,000.
No way.
Wow.
Right? So I had that little kind of buffer.
This is Sale of the Century?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I came home to my apartment on Los Feliz. The apartment they were renting for like $730 a month is now $3,500 a month.
I'm sure.
It's a beautiful building in Los Feliz. And I came home carrying this original Peter Mac silk screen, and my wife was up top. We took everything from our New York apartment and moved in there, and half our apartment was still empty.
Yeah.
So she goes, "Oh, baby, is that your consolation prize?" I said, "Yeah, this and 36,000 other." And she was like, "What?" And I said, "And guess what? I'm going back tomorrow." So I had that little buffer because I said I never really had a job in California.
That's some good luck there.
I had a job for 3 hours because I thought I need a job, and I went and I did some telemarketing. And they got me on the phones immediately because I had a great phone thing from New York Health and Racquet Club. I knew how to work the phones, which segues into Andy and me. Yeah. You had to call people and trying to sell toner and, Xerox supplies and whatever. They called all the women Marks Bettys. And it pissed me off because my mother's name was Betty. So at lunch, I said, "Where's a good place to eat around here?" And they said, "We're going to put you on the phones for real this afternoon to start selling." I said, "Excellent." I got my car, drove away, and I went back. So working more and more with Andy now. And also my next door neighbor came out one day and he goes, "John," he goes, "you're winning a lot of money." Because it was on right after the Today Show. Yeah. And I said, yeah, I was certainly I was a little embarrassed because I was like, I'm an actor. Yeah. And it actually fucked me up at a couple of auditions. He goes, "You want to play some games?" And I'm like, "What?" You want to play some games? I'm like, "Gregory." He said, "I'm the contestant coordinator for Jeopardy."
Oh, wow.
I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So I ended up working, doing sample game shows for Dick Clark.
Oh, wow.
It was the best.
Sorry, I have to tell you. So I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but the best job I ever had, $10 every 2 weeks. I would test out all of the the stunts for the game show Funhouse.
Oh, no
I
way.
got in the total game
could
show
totally see
circuit.
you doing that.
Oh, it was
Isn't
the
that
best,
fun?
The
Yeah.
best job ever. I got covered in chocolate
I
syrup.
can see you doing that.
And then I went to network doing Pictionary for kids. Like
Yep.
And
it's a good racket.
Dick was great. Reg Grundy was the people that were behind Sale of the Century. So again, little by little, I started moving over with Megarian.
Yeah.
Right.
Was he already teaching at this time?
He was coaching, and he was teaching with what's his name? Terrence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, remember Terrence?
I knew the name because his name would come up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Terrence is there. Then Bo convinced Andy.
So he was already dating Bo. So Bo Shoot.
Oh yeah, they were together.
Bo Shoot was a huge kids manager or agent,
and
then
great,
became a manager.
Man, I mean, she had like
She's a little
Stand
gruff.
By Me, and
Oh, yeah, yeah,
she was fucking.
She was tough. I went to meet with her.
Extremely
and
tough. She wouldn't represent me.
She wanted to represent me, but she scared me, and I didn't go with her.
She wouldn't represent me
yeah.
because I was getting older. She said, "Nah, that's too much work."
But
I'm like,
but she was Dave's agent, Dave Faustino's agent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh,
And-
she was so many people. It was her and
I'll tell you
Iris Burton,
And there was one other, Judy Savage.
Judy Savage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Judy was a sweetheart. I
I
went
love
with
Judy. I love Judy.
yeah.
In fact, I got to talk to Stella
And
over
Judy's daughter, I don't know if you remember this. Do you know who Judy's daughter was? Tracy Savage.
Oh, right.
And she got in a lot of trouble during the OJ thing. Not trouble, but
Right.
she wouldn't give up her sources. And
Right.
they threatened to throw her in jail. And she didn't
Yep.
go to jail. But she was all caught up in the whole OJ thing because she was a reporter for NBC.
But what a world then, man. I
Yeah.
mean, because we had, so then what, okay, now I'm going to move into Bonnie Like You. if that's
Yeah,
okay.
sure. Yeah.
So I'm on the phone, and I am cold calling. I mean,
Cold calling.
agents, managers.
Say, hey, I'm an acting coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm new in town, and I said my record was 72 phone calls in 2 hours.
Wow.
That was my record.
Wow.
And I put the calls that I knew were going to be difficult at the end.
Yep.
And I would blow through the other ones, find out yes or no.
Yep.
Because coming out and working with Wallace put me on the phone. He was
Who's
Wallace Potts. This
Okay.
is the guy that cast me in this movie in New York to raise money for. And he wanted to do horror.
Yep.
Right? And a great guy. And he was friends with so many people out here. Mm-hmm. I mean, he ended up being Rudolph Nuriev's archivist.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, his contact sheet was amazing. He used to bring me down, talk about Hollywood.
Yeah.
He knew I loved movies, and I loved the whole idea then of Hollywood and old Hollywood.
Yep.
He would bring me to dinner parties, me and Bonnie, and the people that showed up, Jim Bridges, China Syndrome, and Urban Cowboy, and his partner at the time was Jack Larson. I don't know if you know who that is.
Name sounds familiar, though.
Jack Larson played Jimmy Olsen in the
Oh,
old-
yeah. Yeah.
And he would always sit me next to Jack because he knew I loved. He's the only one that could shut me up.
Yeah.
Because I would just sit and listen to his stories, and he came up with Montgomery Clift and with
what did he play?
Jimmy Olsen on Superman, the TV show.
Superman. Okay.
And he came up with, Roddy McDowell and Elizabeth Taylor, and he would tell me the old studio movies, and I was just like, I'd follow him around, tell me more.
Yeah.
Because going to school, I mean, you went to school when you were signed with a studio here. Whether you were working or not, and they groomed you.
Yeah.
When you got your shot, if you weren't ready, man, that was your fucking fault.
When you're saying that, I'm thinking of the scene of The Godfather: singing lessons, acting lessons, dancing lessons. Yeah,
But and I'm looking at kids in my class, and I'm like, and look, I was a dilettante. I mean, when I was in New York at the Playhouse, and Megarian too, we lived, ate, breathed acting. I mean, we were there from 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock. It was the only time I got perfect attendance in my life.
Yeah.
And we would get out of the Playhouse about 6 at night, go over to Murphy's Bar. We had no freaking money. We'd get one beer and nurses so we could get the free happy hour food, and then go back to one of our apartments and do the repetition. I mean, we had no idea what the hell we were doing, but we would go back, about 4 or 5 of us, and we would talk about acting and talk about what happened to us today. And I started realizing that me and Andy, we started sitting closer and closer to Meisner. Sorry, man, Mr. Meisner. Get closer to him or to Alderson and try to look over his shoulder to see what the hell he was writing. And we were just, that's all we wanted to do.
Sure.
I mean, even in the summertime, a bunch of people rented out a place so we could continue our Meisner technique over the summer.
Yep.
But Andy was of that mind. and I love the guy. And so, like I said, I got on the phones, and Andy asked me one day, can you help me with the phone stuff? It's not easy. But anyway, he gives me a big variety. And he goes, look through here and see the kind of movies we want to make.
Yep.
And, write them down and call them.
Yep.
I said, well, what do I say? He
Yep.
goes, call them. I said, but what am I? He goes, call them. I'm calling distribution companies.
Yep.
I don't have a clue what I'm doing, Danny.
Yeah.
I get on, and I talked to some people, but I learned from the last question you asked. Learn, obviously, the old thing about don't ask a question that can be answered in a yes or no answer. So I would ask questions, I'd listen to the answer, and I'd get another question out of his answer. And I had some guys who said, you don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about, do you? I was like, no. And that was fine.
Yeah.
Because one guy, he goes, look, dude, get off the phone. Fine. I move on to the next one. And one guy would say, do you have, some of the guys were great, do you have 20 minutes? Do you have half an hour? Let me walk you through this and tell you how this works. Do you have a finished product? Do you have this? Do you actually have a script that's celluloid? Or you talk about, I said, no, we don't have that made. When you get that made, call me up and we'll talk distribution. But in the meantime, so I learned a lot there too about listening. So I'm calling agents, managers. I called this guy, came into town, and I said, can I take you to lunch? So I would always ask him, can I take you to lunch? I didn't know better. And some people said yes. I said, no, I don't have time to come fucking have lunch. But I heard Andy on the phone one day with this person, and it was a very short conversation, and I'm kind of listening over here, and I heard, no, we can't do that. And he, thanks, and hung up. And I was like, what was that? He goes, oh, they wanted to come see a sample class. I said, well, who are you talking to? He goes, some woman named Bonnie Liedke, Harry Gold. I went, oh, okay, hold on. And I called her back. And I said, Bonnie, I said, this is John Homa calling. I said, you were just on the phone with my partner, Andrew McGarrian. We didn't even have a class, really. We had kind of an eclectic group of people that were coaching. And I said, what happened? And Bonnie said, oh, he said that you don't allow people to come down and audit, or professionals to audit your classes. Agents aren't allowed, kind of thing. Because Andy didn't want anybody, from the business in the class, which believe me, I agreed with, because I think acting classes are a place where you should be able to fail. Yep. There shouldn't be any of that kind of pressure where you're performing for an agent, in your class. But I mean, at a certain time of the month, if we want to bring in people from the outside and showcase them, that's fine. But just to bounce it on a night, well, we didn't really have a class. And I said, well, Bonnie, let me explain that to you. And I said, we're doing this for your protection. She goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, think about it. What if we just allowed agents, managers to walk in here whenever? And you have 3 or 4 people in our class, clients of yours. What's to stop them to wait outside and pitch your client because they see something they like? And she was like, my God, that makes so much sense. I said, but how about we do this? What if you were to supply us with, 10, 15 clients, students? We'll supply the space, we'll supply all the material, and we'll be at a total disadvantage because we won't know any of them, but I knew we'd be at a complete advantage because most actors are horrible cold readers. And Bonnie said, okay. So we made an appointment that on a Saturday afternoon, and 15 actors come in, and Andy looked at me. I said, look, Andy, here's the thing. We know what we're doing. I said, if nothing else, we're going to meet 15 new actors who might call us for private coaching when they're done. I mean, well, Bonnie came down, she saw what we did, and they were horrible cold readers, and we coached them, we had 2 hours to do this, but we knew all the material, and we coached them, and she's watching these people get better in front of her eyes. Well, that was the beginning of me and Bonnie Liedke's friendship.
Yeah, and she's a sweetheart.
And she took me under wing and just started sending people to me.
Yeah.
And I ended up coaching a lot of people for Harry Gold Agency. And I met little Mara Wilson there, and we hit it with Mrs. Doubtfire. Yep. Around the same time. It would have been 94. About around
so
did
you become known to work with kids? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So were most of your clients started with that? You started
with
them at a
Kirsten
young age.
Dunst, her manager, and I didn't know that her agent was Iris Burton.
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah. I mean, her and Bo were fucking mortal enemies,
well, Iris
man.
was,
and she
had a reputation.
Oh my God! But see, I understood Iris.
Yeah.
I'm from fucking New York, man. We would scream at each other. Well, with the Iris story with me, I called her up. She fucking tears into me. Who the fuck are you to call me? I mean, and fuck is every other word. I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm back at her. So what I did was I called her the next day.
Yeah.
I called her again.
Yeah.
And she's like, what the fuck? The stone's on you to call. Well, here's what I started doing. That 72 list I told you about?
Yeah.
I'm calling people every day. I made sure that Iris was on that list every day.
Yeah.
And I would call her. And I would change my accent just to get her on the phone.
Yeah.
And at the end of the call, I'd say, hey, this is John Homa, by the way. And she would fucking go off. Well, here comes Kirsten Dunst into my classroom at 7. We worked together for a couple of years. Kirsten's not getting anything. She's getting called back for everything. I looked up at the sky when she walked in. I went, thank you. I started coaching the business with her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where I started like changing how I went about this. Yes,
Yeah.
me and Andy, hardcore acting, but also the business.
Yeah.
And then it comes down to the big audition, man.
There's a great portrayal of Iris in the James Franco movie, the one that The Room is based on. Remember The Room?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Tommy Wiseau.
Yes.
I can't think of now what the movie was called.
Not to be mistaken with Room.
Right.
Brie Larson's
No,
Room.
no.
No, The Room
about
was the
Room,
Tommy Wiseau movie, and then Franco made the movie about him.
I can't remember the name of that movie, but it was good.
That is one of the greatest movies. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really great.
The Con Artist. The
No,
artist.
the Disaster Artist.
The Disaster.
That's
I knew it was an
Such
artist.
a great
I had to-
movie.
yeah.
When he would, he was paying for the movie himself,
Right.
but showing up to the set late every day because he thought that was like,
Yeah.
It's a crazy
insanity.
story.
great movie too. But she's has a little arc in that movie.
Yeah.
Because she was his agent.
As much as we fought, a guy came into my class years later.
Yeah.
And I said, so how'd you get to me? He goes, well, it's a funny story. I was bartending, and this woman came in, this little frizzy-haired kind of, and she asked me, what do I do? And she asked me if I was an actor. And the guy says, yeah, I'm just starting out. And I'm studying, well, if you really want to study with somebody, study with this guy. And she wrote my name down on a paper.
Yeah.
As much as we batted heads
Yeah.
with each other, you know what I mean?
The other guy who was around at that time was Gary Spatz, right? Do you know him? You must know him. But did you know Emily Schulman? She was an actress. Iris was her agent too. They were our next door neighbors. But
Well, Balfour's agent, too.
Oh,
Was,
really?
Iris.
so around that time, that's when I met you, Kirsten Dunst.
Right.
I think you were gone for a while because you were on set for Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah, I was down in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He went with
I
her.
was
Okay.
down.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
old was she when she got that part?
10.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
No, you got to understand, Kirsten's special. And I just was back and forth with her a couple of weeks ago over Civil War, because I went to see Civil War. It's such a great performance on her part, and sophisticated. I mean, it's such a controlled but layered performance. I'm just in awe of her, you know what I mean, where she's come, when we started out with Vampire, and, just the list, of movies that went on and on.
But you were the go-between her and Neil Jordan. I mean, in that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you were.
Now, I wasn't hired to be on set, and there's a reason. I ended up doing the screen test
Yeah.
with her. I played Brad's part in the screen test by circumstance. I mean, they were not happy with the guy. If you're out there, buddy, I'm sorry. But they weren't happy with the guy playing him. I was there hoping I wasn't going to get thrown out. And I said, Kirsten, do not look at me when Neil talks to you.
Yeah.
Do not. I'm going to get. And David Geffen's looking over my shoulder because I'm writing notes. He's like, "What the fuck is writing notes?"
Yeah.
And Steve Woolley was there. Tom was there. And it was stressful, man.
Yeah.
And it was. This is after I think they had 40,000 submissions for that role.
Yeah.
They looked everywhere for it. I think they saw between 2,000 and 3,000 girls on tape.
Yeah.
At the time,
How
it was
did you
unheard
end
of.
up on set?
Crazy.
We started auditioning. Well, I'm going to say we. I got a hold of the script early. Well, the book, because we heard it was actually going to be made. Kirsten was approached, and her mom were approached on a street in Beverly Hills.
Wow.
90who10, man. Somebody saw her, and they came out, and they were, "Are you an actor? And is your daughter an actor?" And it was like, "Yeah." And they were like looking at her. This is what Inez told me. And so she got wind of it and said, John, you better get this book. So I bought Interview with the Vampire and just started reading it.
Everybody was reading it. I mean, it was the book.
But that script had been floating around town for a while. But once David Geffen got a hold of it, it became a real thing, you know. So I knew there were going to be auditions. And I think the audition process started in April of '93.
Yeah.
And she had little heels on when she went in, this little white dress all the time. By the time the end of the summer, we had her in ballet slippers because we were worried she was getting too tall because the character of Claudia is 5. And it came down to her and Evan Rachel Wood for it. And I got really scared when I saw Evan. But, I mean, there's a funny story there because I actually broke into Joanna Culbert's office because I heard the audition process going on through the door, and I was not at all happy with what I heard. And I thought, if I don't do something now, I'm never going to forgive myself. If this is the end of this process, because they were putting on tape, and I thought that's not what we rehearsed, and I didn't know what was going on, and I knocked and walked. And I said, hi, I'm Kirsten's acting coach. And I was like,
wow.
I said, do the scene with me. And they're looking, I just took her, I think, off guard. And she was just like, I said, no, do this. And Kirsten's going, Johnny, don't.
Yeah.
I said, no, just do it with me.
Yeah.
And Kirsten, do the thing.
Yeah.
And we did the scene. And even the first time she started, I said, Kirsten, scene.
That was a huge roll of the dice.
Yeah. And man, she did the scene.
Yeah.
And Joanna looked at me and went, oh my God. I said, wait, this is her 3rd or 4th callback.
Yeah.
I said, she's never done that? She goes, oh my God. Well, we weren't happy with the tape. And I talked Joanna into letting me take Kirsten back to my studio, the shop, and do a self-tape myself. And I remember that night because Marta Kaufman had a new show called Veronica's Closet with
Brooke Shields.
Kirstie.
Kirstie
Kirstie Alley.
Rest her soul. She was unbelievable too. I said, I'm coming back to Warner Hollywood tonight. Let me make this tape, and I'll drop the tape off at your office when I come back here later. And then next thing we knew, there was another audition, and then we heard that she was going to meet Neil, and then there was going to be the screen test at Warner Hollywood. And it came down to 3 kids, 3 girls, and 1 girl washed out immediately. I mean, she had a meltdown. Yeah. And it came down to me and to Kirsten and Evan. I worked with both of them. Evan was amazing.
You coached her for this as well?
No. Oh, no. We just met.
Yeah.
Her mom coached her, Sarah. Sarah's an amazing coach and teacher. She teaches out here. Yeah. And but the thing was, I think the look of Evan, she was only 6. And I think the look of it was so, I mean, she's only 5 in the book, but when you see a 6-year-old, it just was too, it was jarring. Where Kirsten, she had that face that kind of transcended time. You know, I mean, the same face now, except older. You know what I mean? It's
100%. Yeah. She just looks like she's just got, she's grown up.
So I ended up they asked me, Neil came over and said, I hear you're a good actor. And I said, I'm an acting coach. And he said, well, I hear you're a good actor. And he says, would you read the scene? And I said, which one are we doing? And I said, I don't need it. I just, did it. Yep. And we got about 3 lines. And he goes, would you do this? And I said, ask Kirsten. I said, it's not my audition, man. Ask her. Yeah. And he asked her. She started crying because she said, he'll make her better. He'll make them better. Yeah. And I said, but think about how good you and me will be. And we did the scene, and next thing I know, you couldn't hear anything. You could hear a pin drop. And then I hear footsteps. I'm going to, was it good? Yeah. Kirsten, she's Louie, and burst into tears and is in my arms. And next thing I know, I got a hand on my shoulder. It's Cruz saying, great job, and can I get you anything? You want some water, man? And I was sitting in a chair, and Neil was down here with his arm on my elbow over my knee, and I'm like, I almost started crying. Yeah. I mean, I tell the story a number of times because I thought, fuck, she got it. Yeah. But we didn't find out right away. We found out, we went up to the Formosa Cafe to have a couple cocktails. We found out a couple days later, and then Sarah called me and said, would you start coaching my daughter? Wow. And that's how I started coaching Evan. Yeah. And I said, on one condition, would you come in and teach our kids class with us? So that's how we all got together. Yeah. But Interview with the Vampire, it put me and her on the map. Yeah. But and how did you end up going? And so what, Neil wanted you to come to the set? Or? No. This is what happened. Neil asked me to take a walk
Yeah.
And we walked around Warner Hollywood.
Yep.
And I knew it was coming. He said, John, I can't put you on the movie. He said, John. I said, he says, no. He goes, you're her source of acting right now. I have to be in control of my movie, and it has to be my voice. I had no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah.
But they did invite me to come down to New Orleans when we first started. In fact, I missed my daughter's birth because of it.
Wow.
My wife Bonnie my ex-wife Bonnie got T-boned at the bottom of our block, 9 months pregnant. And I luckily had Max that day, and her doctor said, everything's fine, go to New Orleans. And Max used to go everywhere with me and so I got on a plane, we went to New Orleans. 3 days later, I get a phone call, midnight. Hi. I went, hi, baby. She goes, my water broke. Baby was supposed to be here for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll be out in the first plane.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get a flight out until the morning.
Yeah.
And came back. I remember Max going in, and Maddie was already there.
Yeah.
My little Madeline.
Yeah.
And Max crawled up on this bed next to where her little lucite bassinet was, and just stared at her till he went to sleep.
Wow.
And they were attached at the hips and so.
Wow.
That's that was that. I actually went over to Pinewood also for Vampire, for the catacomb scenes and all that stuff with Tom and Antonio Banderas.
So from that, you now have an avalanche of kids.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming to you.
Well, Danielle Harris, I don't know if you know who she is.
The name's familiar.
She was in a movie. This is my first movie, actually, but Vampire literally did it.
Yeah.
It was called The Last Boy Scout with Bruce Willis
Yep. Oh, yeah.
and Damon Wayans.
Yeah.
So I coached her for that, and then things started to open up. I mean, because I had Love. It will always be Love to me, Jennifer Love Hewitt. And Andy was coaching like crazy. You had Tina Majorino, Agnes Bruckner, Taryn Manning.
Yep.
We had so many.
And how old are these kids? I mean, that's what's
Well,
so
like I
crazy
said,
to
I
me.
met Kirsten when she was 7. Love came to me at about 10. I started coaching Brie Larson when she was about 10.
Wow.
But Love Hewitt.
You had a group you kept the young kids separate, and you had the young kids that came for coaching and came for like the class, but that was cut off as like a 12, 13.
Yeah, we had a Saturday
And then
class
you
though. We had 3 classes
You
on
had
Saturday.
us knuckleheads, from like
we had 14, you on Tuesday
15
night
to like 22, 23.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, which was a lot of fun. Then we had kind of a teen class.
Yeah.
Allison Kipperman went on to Power Rangers and some other stuff. I'm in touch with her still.
I know Allison.
You know Allison?
Yeah.
Oh, she's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. She was there at that time. It was such a
She's
great,
living in Ireland.
You know who is a great actress and never. She's worked a lot, but I would have loved to see her get her own. Like, she would have been great as like Elaine on Seinfeld. Senta Moses.
I love Santa Moses.
Yeah.
Santa and I were partnered up on a film that we ended up getting initial financing for. They gave us like $30,000 or something like that to do a 4-day shoot of a trailer. I'll show it to you sometime.
Probably one of the most talented people at the shop.
And Santa was.
Yeah.
I think honestly say that.
And hardest working, motivated,
and intuitive, and
a sweetheart.
Yep. Yeah. We worked together for a long time, me and Santa.
Yeah.
That's got to be hard to like.
Well, she took a hit. I don't want to be talking out of school, but it's a true story. And this is why I tell people, don't tell people how old you are. Just don't do it. I said, Santa, I think she was doing Greek. Remember the show Greek? She had like, I don't know how many episodes, and she's playing a college sophomore.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, auditions were drying up, and she called her agent, and they said, "Oh, we submitted you for this, and did you submit me for this? Yeah, submitted for that. Submitted everything, Santa. Well, what's going on? Well, they think you're too old." And she said, "They never met me." So they went to IMDb and they saw your age, but they never met me, because she's so I hate to use the word adorable. It's not really, but she was.
Yeah.
But she was, kind of tiny with this ringlety hair, and she looked really, really young.
Yeah.
Well, I think she was in her 30s when she did Greek.
She's in one of my favorite movies growing up, DC Cab.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, she was in Home Alone.
She was in Home Alone too, yeah. So at that time, now when do you make the shift that you're working on General Hospital, like on the daily?
That came, like Andy and I then, we started the shop.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're flooded.
Yeah.
Like we had everybody. And we're doing like really, I thought really, really good work, the two of us. And, we split it up. You knew how the format was. He had one studio. I had another.
And everybody's working.
Everybody's working.
Yeah.
And Jed Ryan, man.
Yeah.
Freddie came in, and I started coaching Freddie. His agent or his manager sent him to me. And I started working with Freddie, who I loved.
Freddie was one of the sweetest,
ecosystem
nicest guys. I mean,
yeah. But I got approached by Mark Teschner when I got back from England from Vampire.
Yep.
I was approached by Mark Teschner, who's casting director for General Hospital, who knew me in New York as an actor.
Yeah.
And he heard, he was, we had stories about that too, but he heard I was teaching and was like, you know what? Let me call John, because they had a young actor on the show that had been on the show since she was 6 or 7.
Is that Kim?
And you can, in daytime, soap opera.
Yeah.
Which I fucking hate. I mean, daytime's great, but I just hated soap opera. I thought it was ugly. But they can send you away to school for the summer and bring you back with boobs and, it's a whole new actor, that kind of shit. But I went over to General Hospital to say thank you, but no thanks. I had no interest in working in soap opera. And I went over for Mark just to respectfully say thanks, but no thanks, and entertained, whatever. And Wendy Rich, she's also one of my favorite people.
I mentioned to you earlier that there's the Beverly Hills 90who10 connection. I even just thought of one more. So Steve Burton was a Beverly alumni.
Yep.
John Ingle.
Oh, John. John Ingle, one of my favorite. He had an open door. You can go into his room anytime, ever.
Yeah.
And I started hanging out with John. And I went to his, they did a thing on him to honor him at Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
And the first guy that spoke was Nicolas Cage.
Okay. Yeah, he was the drama teacher when Nicolas Cage was there.
Right.
When Lenny Kravitz was there.
An amazing
Jonathan Silverman, David Schwimmer. I mean, he was the drama coach.
John Ingle, when John passed, it broke my heart.
Yeah.
His wife, my God, they were such great people.
Yeah.
But John Berendino, I got to work with him for a little bit when I first got on the show.
This is great. I mean, his license plate was, he drove this Mercedes convertible.
Yep.
And his license plate on his Mercedes was Dr. Hardy, which was his character on General Hospital. But I mean, he drove around Beverly Hills with his character name on the back of his car. Is that great?
Like I said, he reminded me of my dad.
Yeah. His son was the king of my prom that I took Tiffany to.
What was his name?
John Berardino as well.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, so I go up and talk to Wendy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, not wanting to do it, but she started talking about raising the standard of acting in daytime television. I took a lot of heat for doing General Hospital when I first got on it. I lost certain clients.
You were there a long time, like
I was there for 18 years.
Yeah, I remember, and you had an office there because I used to come there for coaching. In your office.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you were teaching on set.
Yeah. Okay. Well, downstairs, but
okay.
Yeah, but then I'd go upstairs and watch the scenes. And I mean, it became such an unbelievable family. And there was one storyline that we did, Stone Cates, where he got AIDS. And I went to Wendy and I said, look, please tell me we're not just going to pay lip service to this. Because I was being in New York during when AIDS hit, I lost a lot of, I mean, my ex, Bonnie, lost 17 close friends and acquaintances. And I said, Wendy, if we're going to do this, please let's do it right. And it was just an amazing year for us. And Michael Sutton, another Beverly Hills.
Another Beverly alumni.
Hills.
Do you know Robbie? His brother.
No, but Michael had like restaurants and clubs.
Michael had restaurants and clubs,
and now he's in real estate.
Yeah.
But I love Michael, and his father, Joe, I really loved. Joe came to me after.
Yeah.
I said, Michael, if you listen to me, we do this right, you might end up with an Emmy by the end of this year. Well, he ended up with an Emmy nomination. And Joe said, I used to watch my sons work like this. He goes, you allowed me to do this. But, and he was paired up, the very famous, thing where I was brought over for was Kimberly McCullough.
Yeah.
To bring her into, kind of help her way into adulthood on the show.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed with them that they would do that. And Wendy wanted to raise the standard of acting in daytime television. And I went to work, man, and it was my joy, literally my joy to be there every day. I couldn't wait to get there. And I was only working with Kimberly.
Yeah.
Then they asked me to work with Vanessa Marcel.
Yeah.
And Vanessa and I became like attached at the freaking hip. Michael, and then Steve Burton jumps on board. Yeah. And the crazy thing was Ricky Martin was on the show at that time, and that's how I started working with Ricky, because she was involved in a love storyline, with Lily Melgar and with Vanessa.
Okay.
And they started working then with Maurice, because Maurice
Bernard
and Brenda Barrett, Sonny Corinthos and Brenda Barrett.
Yeah.
That was the big love affair on the show.
Did you ever watch General Hospital?
I never watched any.
It was actually really good. But when Stone Cates died, I mean, it was one of the. I'll still rank it up with one of the best things I've ever done.
I mean, predating you.
What we've done.
Predating you there. I mean, in the 1980s, when I was a kid, the wedding of Luke and Laura on General Hospital was like the biggest TV
I know it from like a
and that's another one, Tony Geary.
Yeah.
Man, I went to see him in a play over, on the West Side, and hour and some minutes on stage by himself. I brought the guy cigars the next day, man.
And that's the funny thing about daytime television, though. You can be a huge soap star, and pretty much nobody knows who you are.
No, yep.
Yeah,
I know.
weird.
But Bonnie liked you, though, too, for a little bit.
Yeah, Bonnie, talk about
just to please. We have to.
Well,
sing
I'm gonna
her
have
praises.
Bonnie on the show. She's a great friend of my sister's. Every time around,
just an amazing person.
Anytime around her,
a great agent, now a great manager over at Authentic.
Homa Love Fest.
And that's funny.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
But I remember, when I think, Leo didn't want to leave. He was getting big time offers, to go to CAA and places. He didn't want to leave without Bonnie.
Yeah.
I mean, he was very loyal to Bonnie.
And they're still close.
They're still, and but Harry turned around and made her an offer that she couldn't refuse, and she stayed there.
Yeah.
But Bonnie and I have been friends since then.
And she's a sweetheart.
Yep.
And I love her.
I think I just talked to her last week.
Yeah. She's an amazing person.
She really is.
So I want to talk about Mac, but before we do, I just wanted to talk about one last thing. You were a huge proponent and still are of actors creating their own material, their own thing, getting their own, making their own show. Like just.
Well, look at now. Look at where we are now.
Yeah.
I mean, you got this thing.
Creator culture.
Yeah.
Yep.
Make a movie, man.
Yeah.
Now look, I'm trying to get things funded on a whole different level. It's very difficult right now. But I mean, if you're out here, you're a young actor, you don't have a wife, you don't have kids, you don't have a husband, you're not tied down. I mean, get together. Make a freaking movie.
Yeah.
I have on my laptop right now an amazing movie. I can't really say what it is or who, but these two girls that I started working, actors that I work with from Austria, that went to, and I told them this when they were in Austria, learn to produce, make a movie. They just made a movie that they showed me.
Yeah.
I have it. It's so incredible. And they made it for nothing.
Wow.
And they called in, but see, the thing is, they called in favor after favor
after
favor. But either one of them could walk out of here, a big time career from this movie.
Yeah.
One location, they shot it inside a house, and it's very kind of Germanic in the way they did with American storytelling. It's a really interesting piece, but I mean, they do what I asked them to do. I mean, this thing's kicking around Europe now in film festival,
That's awesome.
And they're working on their second project now.
And that's how you get it done.
Yeah. You got to just do it.
iPhone 15s, or 14s with cinematic on there.
Oh, yeah.
Get together with your friends, write a script, get behind the camera and learn the business. I mean, learn what you really need to do in front of the camera, because that's, I think, a lot of people they don't understand it. They're in a classroom, they're great in a classroom, they're great in the audition. Then you walk on set and you're kind of lost because it's a whole other monster out there, man. Learn the business.
And also,
look at Charlie Sheen. Look at Charlie, and look at Rob Lowe, and look at those guys. They were making movies in their backyard. Go see
Ron Howard.
Go see the Fabelmans.
Yeah.
And watch that story. I mean, it's Steven Spielberg. I mean, get excited about what you do.
Yeah.
And get into an acting class. Learn learn a craft, man. Learn your craft. But get out there and work.
Yep.
I mean, don't wait for it to come to you, because it's not going to.
Before we had the iPhones, I remember you talking about just start writing your script.
Yeah.
Just write your script.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you might not be a great scriptwriter, but you might be an idea person.
Yeah.
So partner up with somebody, collaborate, because this whole business is a collaboration, anyway. But make connections. Like I said, I go back to Charlie, because him, Emilio, all those guys growing up, I read all these stories about them growing up. I got a chance to, to work with, because I worked with Denise Richards for a long time, and, she's a very, old friend of mine. And, I worked with Charlie on anger management at one point. But look what he did. I mean, yeah, Charlie's got his demons and all that shit, but I mean, his act is like much cleaner.
There's a great documentary that just came out, Andrew McCarthy made, called Brat.
Oh, I know. I got to watch it.
Yeah.
I just read about it. I have to read it.
Yeah.
Because Ali Sheedy was our wardrobe person in a play that I did in New York. I mean, when she was 16.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even before we roll into Max, I'll say one thing, because you asked me about my acting. What happened was my brother had made a small short movie when at Beverly High they had something called KBEV, which was Beverly Hills had its own TV station, and my brother made a movie. It was called Coming Home from School, and it was a takeoff. There was a Brady Bunch episode where Peter came home and nobody was home, and he made a huge mess of everything. And it was basically a rip off of that. I made a sandwich and I make a mess in the kitchen. I got stuff all over me. I throw it in the wash machine and I put way too much detergent in, and the thing starts overflowing. And it was on KBEV, and I got a call from an agent. And I went out on a few auditions. I did a couple commercials, and then I stopped. I wanted to hang out with my friends or this or that, but I had my SAG card. I'd done some work, and my sister, was in casting for a long time, and she was, she was working for Molly LaPata, who shared
Molly. Look, I love Molly
with Judith Holstra.
Yeah,
and Judith was doing a movie called Pump Up the Volume. And
Christian.
Right. And they were doing, I came in to help on a Saturday, just help in the office. And as like a bone, my sister was like, you can audition for this movie. And Judith loved me, right? And I got a very small part in Pump Up the Volume. And the day before I'm about to go to work on Pump Up the Volume, the guy who actually had the part I ended up with showed up with no work permit and completely unprepared. Because as a kid, you have to have a work permit.
Yeah, you have to.
And I got bumped up. Now I went from like one line to like, I'm in the entire movie. And making that movie changed my life. That's where I met Robert Gavin. That's how I met Dave Faustino. Yeah. And that, how I met John. That movie really changed my life a lot. And then I worked a little bit here and there afterwards. But that movie.
What year was that, 91?
I made that movie in 1989. It came out in 1990.
Okay.
Yeah. And that changed my whole friend group and everything. Yeah.
Man, but God, Molly. Did you get to know Molly at all? She was one of the best casting directors you could have ever auditioned with.
And then my sister went on to work for Francine Maisler forever and ever and ever.
I did Spanglish with them.
My sister did a ton of movies with Francine.
She's an unbelievable casting director.
My sister from Francine became vice president of casting at TNT. And she was there for a very short period of time. My mom had passed away, and she decided she wanted to change her life, and that's when she went into teaching. My sister's a third grade teacher.
Right. Great.
Yeah. But, stayed friends with Bonnie the entire time. Right. Let's talk about Max for a minute, okay? I mean, I just remember, And
I got two of them. I got Maddie, too.
Max and Maddie, yes. That's right. I mean, first of all, for somebody who doesn't follow golf, I don't know if you realize really the level of success that his son has attained.
No, my dad follows golf.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know things. I'm not a sports person, so
But you gotta understand something. Look at any basketball court, any soccer field, anything related to sports around the country, and you look at how many people are playing.
Yeah.
The chances of you making it to the pros is slim to none.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe 1% is going to make it to a certain level within that.
I mean, Max has struggled a little the last couple of weeks, but before that, he's been in the last. He
had a great year last year, man.
He's been in the top 5.
Yeah, I think he's still in the top 10.
Yeah, he is in the top 10.
Top 10 in the world.
The world.
The world.
It's unbelievable.
That's
it is unbelievable. So, and Max, I joined. Her dad's also a member of Mountain Gate.
Oh, cool.
Okay, her dad. Did you ever, the Grassroots?
Sure.
Her dad was in the Grassroots.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
You Beverly Hills kids.
Yeah. Come from weird things.
Well, look at Amber Tamlin's dad.
Yeah.
Russ. Oh, my God.
Well, but so Warren is a great guy, her dad. But when I first joined Mountain Gate, John and Max were my very first guests. And Max was 14 years old. Yeah, did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Max was 14, and I was terrible. After the lesson, after the round, I went and signed up to take lessons. That was so bad. But Max, he was 14, and he had this desire to play golf, and I've been watching him his whole life, and it's been such a ride to see him.
It was
you a
rough.
golfer?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I grew up playing football, and I boxed for a while. Went street fought and stuff. But I tore my hamstring, and again, I grew up in a coal mining town. I came home one day. My dad, there's a set of golf clubs sitting there. I'm like, He said, you can't run, you can walk. I'll see you.
Yeah.
And I went out and started playing golf. I had no lessons, no anything. I ended up playing on a high school team, and still some of my best friends from that.
And the cool thing about Max is not only is he so great as a golfer, but he's now taken on this persona. He has this wit about him. You know,
well, it got him through a very tough time because
Yeah.
he was on Twitter when he was having a very difficult time on tour. Look, my son, you know, he MVP'd a bunch, I think 3 years in a row at Valencia High School. He played on AGGA. You probably don't know what that is. Junior SCPGA. He did all the things you do when you're coming
National,
up. Yeah, and then he got recruited by everybody. And the funny story is UCLA stopped calling for whatever reason. He really wanted to go to UCLA. Well, we ended up going up to Cal.
Yeah.
And, you know, interviewed up there, walked the campus, did the whole thing. You know, they give us a whole tour.
By the way, if you're a pretty good student to go to Cal anyway.
Yeah.
So he's up at Cal Berkeley, and he was always a really good student, and a really smart guy, and extremely personable. I mean, really funny. Just really funny.
And so there's a thing now on social media where people send, you know, amateur golfers send their video of them with their golf swing to Max and say, Max, do your worst. And he is like the funniest, the wittiest.
That's
like
what kind of. And now he's buddies with Charles Barkley. I mean, the guys that he hangs around with now crack me up too.
Well, and the funny thing is, I mean, like I said, when I first met you, it was 93, 97 Tiger heyday. And I remember.
Tiger Woods played at Valencia Country Club the year that the PGA championship was at Riviera, so they didn't want to play the Genesis, what was the Genesis now? They didn't want to play it there because they had two big tournaments that year.
Yeah.
They were worried about the course, so they moved it to our course at Valencia. And I took him out to watch, right? And he was a little kid. And I remember him saying, Daddy, can you get Tiger? Can you get, I said, he's not going to turn around for my voice. If anything, he may turn around for you. And so Tiger walks by, but he's working, man.
Yeah.
And Max is going, Mr. Woods.
Yeah.
Mr. Woods. And I look over, and his eyes are brimming.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just about to start crying. I was like, God damn it, I wanted to tackle Tiger.
Yeah.
And I looked over, and I said, hey, look who's standing by the tree. It was Payne Stewart.
Yeah.
Now, Payne had walked off the 10th fairway to talk to Max when he was a little boy.
Yeah.
And he always remembered him for that because of the +4s, too.
Yeah.
Well, and that was another sad day. I mean, one of the saddest days. But to go from that to, I have a picture on my phone of Max playing his first U.S. Open in Philadelphia on the driving range next to Tiger.
Well,
And now to play
the Masters.
to play with him.
That's
Well, he
crazy.
also played Tiger's last two rounds at the Open at St. Andrews with him.
Yeah,
but Thursday, Friday. But to play the Masters with Tiger.
I was glued to the TV. And you know the funny thing is, you and you'll usually text.
Yeah.
I'll text you. I'll be like,
Right.
I'm watching Max. You know, Max almost won the Masters this year. And not only did I not text you, but I didn't say a word to anybody around me because I wanted it for him so badly. And I wanted it for you so badly.
I mean,
you know, and it'll happen. It will happen.
For him to be a shot off the lead on Sunday at the Masters, I was dying. And, you know, unfortunately it wasn't to be, but Scotty had a great Sunday. And Scotty Scheffler also is just one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, and his dad.
You know, I'm thinking, though, when I think of mentally tough people, you're somebody I would think of. And acting, and like when you're talking about even Kirsten Dunst going in on this interview for the audition for Interview with the Vampire, there's so much pressure, and Tom Cruise is in the room, and Neil Jordan's in the room, and you have to be, and
Kirsten
you have to be so mentally tough.
I had,
and you, as the coach, have to bring that person there, especially a little kid.
Yeah.
Do you think you imparted some of that on Max?
Well, I certainly, would like to think I did, but I certainly think I did. I mean, Max has talked about certain things on podcasts I've heard him on, talking about work ethic, talking about me in terms of, and his mom, with the work ethic. Mm-hmm. I said, I grew up, my old man got up at 4:30 in the morning. He came home and the job was done. It's just, how you do it.
Yeah.
And Max had a work ethic from when he was as little as I can remember.
Yeah.
He just, when he put his mind to a thing, it was going to get done. I mean, Bonnie and I tell a story about him trying to get up on a step when he was just learning how to crawl, and he wouldn't lay off that step until he conquered it.
Yeah.
Other guys would have quit, in 2017.
Yeah.
I mean, because my son, I don't know if you know, but he ended up winning the Pac-12 and here at LA North, which was big because it was, UCLA, USC, all the Pac.
Not only won, but set the course record.
Yeah, set the course record at 61, as a college player. And I remember he came off and he hugged me. He just dropped it and he said, finally, because he finally won something.
Yeah.
We had talked before that about what are you going to do, because a lot of his friends were deciding whether or not to turn pro, right? I said, what are you going to do? And he goes, Dad, I want to play in the Walker Cup. I mean, it's a very prestigious, him and JT. And
the Walker Cup is like the amateur President's Cup.
It's the biggest amateur tournament like in the world. And I said, well, what do you got to do? He goes, Dad, I got to win something.
Yeah.
Because he took so many second places, at Cal. And they were the winningest team in the NCAA that year. I mean, no one's beaten that record to this day.
And listen, that was a tough Walker Cup, but then come in and clutch at the President's Cup. I mean,
that was a whole other story.
Putting the whole team on his back.
But but Max, I mean, when he won, the guy, the head coach at UCLA gets up and he says, I felt bad for the guy. He goes, why are you not playing for UCLA? And without blinking, he said, you stop calling me.
Yeah.
And that was the end of that story. So he went on then to win the NCAA that year as well.
Wow.
I'm going to ask you two more questions about Max, and we're going to wrap it up.
3 guys in the world, by the way, have ever won the NCAA and the PAC in the same year.
Wow.
Guess who they are?
Max, Tiger.
Give me one more.
Phil, maybe?
Phil.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
That's really cool. What a group. What company?
What company?
Yeah. After taking them to the Genesis all that time, and that's our tournament here in LA, and then he wins it.
Well, I said, someday, Max, maybe your picture will be up there.
What was that like? What was that feeling like?
No, well, I couldn't go. COVID.
No way.
No, we weren't there. That's why Max was so emotional when he won.
Torrey?
No, when the next year, because he wanted to win it in front of his family.
He almost did.
He almost did. He came in second. Him and John Rahm right around 15, probably around 13.
He's been battling some pretty big names. Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, and big names.
Max is one of the guys. I mean, they're battling him too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Winning Torrey was big because he came from 5 shots behind.
Yeah.
And to gut it out. And that was the first time I actually was there when I heard an entire kind of golf course screaming Homa.
Yeah.
And it was surreal.
Amazing.
To see that happen. Amazing. I mean, he won up in Napa, twice. Then won Torrey, and but no, 6 times. But Quail Hollow. I mean, winning down there, his first one.
Did you coach him a lot too at the early stages of golf? You seem to know how to coach with kids too.
Well, the thing is, my wife laughed at me one time. Bonnie laughed at me because she said about soccer, because I was pissed off the soccer coach, and she said, "Well, do you know anything about soccer?" I said, "I don't know anything about soccer." I said, "But I know about coaching. That's what I know, and I know how to talk. I know what." I said, "The one thing. What do I always ask? What is acting?
Yeah.
What is acting?" And I won't let you out of the room until you can answer the question. And I get adult actors come in all the time. I mean, because I work with a number of adults. That's what I do. And I'm surprised that no one's ever asked them what the word act means. They're established actors. I said, no one's ever asked me that question. Well, I told my wife, I said, I'm taking that soccer ball and putting it in a room with these kids, and we're not going to leave here until I get the answer, what is soccer? And we're going to understand what the game's about before we go out into the field and start kicking balls around. Because as soon as you do, you'll lose every kid on the field.
Yeah.
But with Max, he had such a drive, as a kid. He was that kid that was going to win. He didn't have, at the time, a classic swing. Because I didn't know. I mean, I played athletic golf. I learned how to play golf on my own. I had no professional instruction. But I had an athletic swing, and I was actually a good golfer. I got it down at one point to a 3.
It's funny because everybody's on the Homa bandwagon now, but I've been saying his name for quite some time.
Well, taking Max, I mean, and we had a lot of issues, times because he was not always fun to play with, with the older guys because they're rooting everything, and he's not making birdies, and he's pissed off, and it's like walk him off the course. But then he would come back out, so just absolutely determined to find a way to win, and that's Max. I mean, Yeah.
Last question. It's Max related, but not golf related. How's it being a grandpa?
It's, you know, yeah, God, Danny, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you know, when I got sick, I found out that I was going to be a grandfather around the same time that my dad found out that he was going to be a grandfather. And unfortunately, my dad died 10 days later.
It's funny. I'm gonna interrupt you for 1 second. You never know when you're talking to people what's gonna stick, especially when you're the teacher and there's a student. And I remember being in your class one time, and the subject came up about how do you cry? How do you cry in a scene? And I'll never forget this. You talked about your father not being with us anymore. Max and Maddie were kids, small kids, and you said you thought about picking up your dad in the car.
Yeah.
And saying, I'm going to take you over to the house.
Yeah.
And you're going to meet your grandkids. And so that same thing is what I'm feeling from you as we're talking about your grandson. Yeah.
I'm going to kill you. But the parallels were too weird because Max was born in November and Cam was supposed to come in November. Now he came October 31st. And I thought my dad died in March. I found out that I was sick in April. No, I'm stopping this right now.
Yeah.
This is not going to be a thing where, you know, the Homa guys, you know.
We didn't talk about it on the podcast, so just to fill people in, you went through a little bit of a heart issue.
Major
heart issue.
Yeah.
You were sick for quite some time. You didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But
and I had two things going on, really. My daughter was getting married in June, and my grandson was going to be coming in November. I swear to God, it got me through because I was like, I am going to be here for these events. So, I mean, how Max got me through my father, which I talked about at his bar mitzvah, which was insane. Because I said he was not just my son, he was my son. Because that was the light that got me. You know, I'm looking at Max now with Cam. I look at them and I look at the relationship they have, and it just brings me back. But yeah, it's crazy because I love the thought of being a grandfather, of having a grandson. Yeah. Being a grandfather is weird, you know, because you never think you're ready, you know, for this shit. You know, he's just the most beautiful.
How old is he?
He's a year and a half.
Oh, that's the best.
And he's just now beginning to talk, and you know, he's walking, and I just look at my son, and my son's an amazing father. Yeah. And you know, you grow up. You know, I looked at my father because my grandfather, he was a tough guy. I mean, great guy. I loved him. But from what I understood later, because I knew him when I was little, I didn't realize like the asshole he could be, and a major tough guy. And I saw my father as a major tough guy, but always good. Yep. But I realize now how much kind of better of a father my dad was than his dad, and I see where I was a better father with my son and my daughter because I found much more time. I can tell you times when I went somewhere with my dad. It was that infrequent because he worked. But with me and Max in golf, we always had time for each other. Yeah. I mean, Max would be waiting for me. He'd play 54 holes and be waiting for me to get home. We'd play 2 or we'd play 12. Yep. And you know, we'd play in the dark. And that is going to get passed. I already see it getting passed to Cam. The love he has for that child is just amazing, and how he is with him. Yeah. Because look, I was a spare the rod, spoil the child kid growing up. I mean, we got whacked around. Yeah. Never. I mean, not without love. Yeah. But we got whacked around. No,
and
different time.
Yeah. And I said I'm never going to raise a hand to my child in any way. Yeah. But either of them, I never swatted either of them on the butt. Yeah. I mean, never. I was much more insidious. I talked. Yeah. And I was like, God, hit me, please just hit me. But I see that gentleness, with Max and Cam. And I see it with him and Lacey, his wife. I think he's an amazing man. And I think, in that regard, he's on a number of issues, he's a better man than me. Yeah. And I have nothing but sweet. Just respect and love and awe of him. And Maddie, you know.
No, that's to say, now I feel, I mean, when we're talking about golf, I felt, okay, we're going to focus on Max.
Yeah,
but now that you're talking about really the nuts and bolts of your family and the love.
It's been tough. You know, she's grown up in the shadow of her brother.
Yeah.
They have an amazing relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, an amazing relationship, brother, sister, amazing. And just such an unbelievable love for their mom. But she kind of ducked under that light, you know, that spotlight, you know, and let it on. You know, I don't know how she feels about it. You know, in retrospect, you know, I mean, sure, I think she got kind of pushed to the side a little bit.
Neither of them, one of them wanted to pursue acting at all?
Oh, I'd give it no, here's what I did. I brought them, I got them their work papers.
Yeah.
Well, Max used to hang out. Me and Andrew, we call him the shop rat.
Yeah.
He was at the shop every afternoon. I picked him up from Temple Bethel because he was in preschool over there.
Yeah.
And I brought him to the shop, and he'd hang out with me every afternoon and watch people get coached and watch acting. In fact, there was one day I was having a problem with this kid. I mean, this kid was just not doing it. And I think I actually had it.
His name wasn't Jed Ryan, was it?
No, I love Jed. Jed and I banged heads, man, but I love Jed.
Yeah.
But the kid left, and Max turned the corner and did his audition.
Oh, wow.
And then turned right around and walked back and started like doing something else. Yeah. But I got them their work papers because being on General Hospital, they had the Christmas show every year. Mm-hmm. And they invited all the people there that had kids of that age. Bring your kids down. So I had to get them working papers. So I brought them with me to Van Nuys. Mm-hmm. They went through the whole thing, which they didn't like doing to begin with.
Yep.
And then put them on the show. And they got in pajamas. And after about a half an hour, Maddie was like,
Yeah.
And she got car sick on the way down. Yeah. I mean, it was, you know, just
so
one of the.
That's so interesting, though. Like your kids were like, yeah, no, this is not.
No.
I'm not hearing you.
And
well.
you were. You're not?
No, yeah.
Are you hearing me
now I am.
And Max was looking at me going, Daddy, I said, Maddie, it takes more than a half an hour to shoot a show. You know, I said, you're here for the day. And Max was saying, my stomach hurts. I said, you're working. And that did it. They didn't want to come back.
Yeah.
Max came down and hung out at GH all the time. Yeah. But not for that. I mean, he came up and ran the hallways with me. And because back in those days, I was also, like, Kirsten would be over, Michelle Williams, Mina. So I coached everybody there.
Yeah, I remember going there.
Longest time, you know what I mean? And they knew everybody, and everybody, like, loved them. But no, they didn't have any. I tried to bring them to the control room to see if maybe they sparked to that side of the camera. But nah, you know what? Anything with a ball or a stick, Max was interested in.
Was Maddie athletic as well?
Maddie was a really good athlete. Yeah. She was a swimmer. Yeah. She was a springboard diver. Yeah. She played soccer, but she competitively swam for Valencia. Yeah. Then what's her name? Ellie Weissel? No. She went out to the Olympics. That's her competition. Yeah, yeah. But also, you know, Maddie being like 5'3", my son being almost 6'2". Yeah, wow. Thankfully, it worked out that way. But, you know, to be a competitive athlete in college, you know, you almost have to be long. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, you do. And then Max's body type just fit golf amazingly well. But she was at SCSU. She went to San Diego State. And a girl about her size ran across the quad one day. And she said, hey, would you like to be coxswain for the men's crew team? And she was like, yeah. So she ended up being the coxswain.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, for the men's crew team. Yeah. And now is married to one of the crew guys.
No way.
Yeah, great guy, man. Blake. He's just a great guy.
That's awesome.
I mean, if you can, you know, really find somebody that you love for your daughter, that's him.
You have a great son-in-law and daughter-in-law.
Yeah. Blake's amazing, and they're so completely in love. And
that's awesome.
But they met, because she was coxswain for the crew team.
John, I can't thank you for spending.
I love that. I wish you could stay along.
There's
so many more freaking. There's so many more though.
I know.
But yeah, so you know, if you need a replacement someday and somebody dumps you, you know, call me. I'll run down.
Oh my gosh, I love it. It was. I feel like we barely scratched the surface.
We did barely scratch the surface.
One more story. Yeah. Watching the playoffs, right? Yeah. He's got to finish in the top 75 to make the playoffs, to have any kind of hope at getting his card back, because he lost his status. Yep. I'm teaching over in off of Camarillo in the Valley, and he has got to birdie 6 holes in the back 9 to get into the top, 75. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm standing outside St. Matt's Church. Now, God knows you don't want me in a church, because, if lightning strikes, it'll be at me. And I'm looking, and sure enough, man, he birdies one, And I'm looking, he pars another, and birdies another, and kind of pars another. I'm looking. I went inside St. Matt's Church, and I said, I'm sitting in the back, the cleaning women are there in the afternoon, and I'm looking, and I'm going, God, this is not for me.
Yeah.
I am, but please, whatever. Oh, and I think he birdied 5 in a row to finish the round and ended up 74th out of 75.
Wow.
Took a top 3 or something in the first round of playoffs. Came back. He called me after the second round was over. He had gotten his card back by the second round. He didn't even have to play in the third round. And he was screaming, I got my card. Now, that was after having no status. I think 4 months later, he won the Wells Fargo.
I mean, I've been watching him since college. And, to see the ride and the roller coaster. And
he's unbelievable.
The little bit of uptick, and then the struggle, and then the breakthrough.
Yep.
It's been unbelievable.
Yep. And he didn't look back.
He's right there. I know that.
Janet Gretzky, he won his first tournament with her in the BMW Pro-Am on the old web.com tour.
Yeah.
Nationwide that it went out. It's the Corn Fair. Yeah, I mean.
The major's coming.
Yeah. I think he came, he shot 8 under on Sunday. No, it's coming.
The major's coming.
It's coming. But his refusal to lose, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just, he's just an amazing guy.
I'm telling you, I wanted the Masters for him so badly.
Me too.
But it's going to happen.
Me too.
Jess, wrap it up for us.
Wrap it up for you. Oh, my. John, it's been a pleasure to have you. And I definitely feel like we're probably going to talk offline because that's what always happens after the show wraps. But to everyone that's watching and listening out there, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, tell all your friends, Instagram us, send us messages. Thank you especially to Vicky Bushman, who always leaves lovely comments.
And remember to take a little Todd time for yourself.
Yes, everybody. Todd time.
Yeah.
Tot it up.
All right, guys.
All right. Until next time, it's been 90who10. This is John Homa. We can find you online.
My website is just, Instagram's Hey It's Homa.
Yep.
Online is just, johnhoma.com. It's my
johnhoma.com.
website, and you can find me. If anybody wants, if any of you guys are crazy enough to want to be actors, let me know.
Awesome.
Still teaching.
I'll help you out. Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. Well, until next time, thank you so much.
You.
Thanks for joining us.
Have a great night, you guys.